Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to give about 30 more seconds before we begin, just as people are coming in from the waiting room. All right. I'm sure we expect to see more people. We are thrilled for the guests, friends, staff, educator that we do have currently. But I think we should go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, so much for the opportunity to be here. We'd like to thank all the BTU educators for giving us a platform in order to facilitate a conversation. My name is Claudia Willis, and I'm a part of the instructional team for OEL. Tonight, or this evening, you're joined by Jacqueline Eichenberger, who is presenting her screen, Eleni Saridis, who is manning the chat and doing some technical pieces, and then as well as Dunya Zero, who is also doing the chat technical pieces as well. Please feel free to use the chat for any questions that you may have during any part of this presentation. Before we move on, I would like to introduce Paul Tritter. As you may know, he has some important announcements for you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just wanted to thank the OEL team and Dr. Romero Johnson and Daphne Germain, acting director of the Office of English Learners, for hosting us today and for providing the space for educators to give some input and thinking and to share their experience with educating multilingual learners. So looking forward to a good conversation. This is going to be one of a couple of conversations that we'll have coming up in the next month or so around this project. So that's one. The second one, I figured this would be a good place to ask is, we are starting in collaboration with the superintendent a set of task forces just to think forward to the fall and what our needs are along a whole variety of topics. One of them is supporting multilingual learners as we return to school in the fall. And I'm particularly looking for any secondary educators of English learners who might be interested in participating. And so if you or a colleague might be interested in joining a series of meetings across May and June to think about the fall, that would be, please send your name along to me at ptritter@btu.org. And we're especially looking for educators of color to join, but it's open to everyone. So please, if you know secondary teachers of English learners, we would love to have them take on that opportunity to share their voice and experience. And that's my pitch for today. So thanks again, and I'll turn it back over to you, Claudia. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that important announcement or announcements. Next slide, please. So everyone, welcome to our BTU community conversation on reimagining multilingual learning. As I mentioned, my name is Claudia Willis, and I will be facilitating this conversation with the help of my wonderful colleagues, Eleni, Dunya, and Jacqueline, as well as Daphne Germain, who is our acting assistant superintendent of the Office of English Learners, and as well as Dr. Sylvia Romero Johnson, who is the interim chief academic officer. We know that she's serving two roles at this point, and we are so grateful for the opportunity to engage with you and share time. We're also supported by other members of the Office of English Learners from our community engagement team, as well as our equity team members who have joined. So the purpose of tonight's conversation and tonight's meeting is to learn about the process OEL is undertaking to shift ELL programming, and for participants to share input on the roadmap for quality education for multilingual learners. This meeting is a part of a larger series of meetings in which we began to work to reimagine what the Office of English Learners is going to look like, always forward movement. Our agenda for this evening is to hear a brief update about the dual language programming, followed by a presentation on the roadmap to quality education and multilingual learning. We will have a panelist discussion and followed by opportunity to ask questions and comments for everyone. At this time, if you are putting comments in the chat, please don't worry, we are having a note catcher for that as well. Next slide, please. To be respectful of everyone's time, we are going to wrap up at 6 p.m. Tonight's meeting is being recorded to serve as a resource for those who could not be here today. So just some norms or our ways of being. Please be present, be respectful, be open-minded, be mindful of everyone, and just please be engaged. And there's a growth mindset norm as well. Lean into the discomfort. We're really here to engage you and to hear the feedback that you have from us. So please do not hesitate to participate. Next slide, please. Our timeline of this work runs from February to June, and June is right around the corner. So we have been moving rather quickly. OEL is reflected on the district feedback from stakeholder groups and the rollout of major initiatives. And we're going to apply those learnings to this rollout. We also have other input from stakeholders, and we're going to put this into a rubric or checklist to make sure that we're integrating the feedback, that we're noticing key trends from all stakeholders, as everyone is very crucial and vital to this work. Next slide, please. So please keep in mind, we're doing a little bit of paradigm shifting. We really want to engage in these conversations about the future direction and services that are present for our multilingual learners. One of the greatest assets of our community is linguistic diversity. There are over 70 different languages reported by students and family. And please know that the language you hold or the language you want to hold is very important to us as we continue to grow as a community. We find ourselves at a juncture, at a point where we have been afforded an opportunity to completely rethink about how we serve our students. The fact that the Look Act was passed a few years ago and the district has approved a strategic plan and equity tool framework really aligns to the push and the needs to support ELs at the forefront. And this is really great. So now is the time for a paradigm shift from seeing ELs as a deficit perspective and to an asset-based perspective. And it's for all students who desire access to world-class education through the implementation of a more language-based model or program. Next slide, please. So current research shows that different children can acquire more than one language at a time, and certainly being able to develop and maintain one's home language or heritage language is not only doable, but provides so many advantages. It provides cognitive flexibility to our students. As you can see in this slide here, there are many parts of the brain and brain functions that give those who are bilingual a great advantage. There's also research in the field of second language acquisition and dual language programming that shows that the more we incorporate content and language development at the same time, and the more we're using the two languages or more to a greater extent, including developmental reading and writing within those two languages, we have the potential to not only reach our monolingual peers or surpass them as well. So next slide, please. our department has engaged in a change process. It will require all of us to move from our current reality to something different. So what we have done so far is that we've identified external partners to help us with this work, and it's through a change process to ensure that we're utilizing the most current research, and so that we can write a plan and really go forward in this work. We're going to engage with stakeholders, and it's a continued process, like we're doing right now, internally and externally, to increase our understanding of our programming and to obtain more critical feedback. So today is part of the beginning process. We're forming a steering committee, and internal and external stakeholders will be able to supervise the implementation of this plan. By the end of May, also around the corner, we want to create this document that we're calling the roadmap. This roadmap will be present or will be presented to the school committee. It will be the result of engaging stakeholders. We also hope to rebrand our office, the Office of English Learners to the Office of Multilingual Learners will be present in BPS. And we know that we have to renegotiate some of the DOJ agreements and meta consent decrees to continue to move this crucial work forward. And we know there may be barriers, but we are ready to do the best for our English learners or our multilingual learners. So next slide, please. As you know, that bilingual education is inherently a political process, and we are trying as a district to really line up to our version of effective anti-racist bilingual education programs. I know you see a quote by Jim Cummings, and it's really woven into the practice that we're doing here tonight or this evening, really making sure that we can implement change for all the right reasons. And the right reasons are the student population that we serve. So right now, we're going to take a moment and answer some questions in the chat box. Oh, I do not see any questions in the chat box. So at this time, I'm going to hand this over to our wonderful leader, Dr. Romero Johnson. She will be facilitating a panel discussion tonight.
Thank you so much, Claudia. And thank you so much to the panelists who have accepted to be here tonight, as well as all of you who are attending. We are really looking forward to a conversation. So let me start with our dear colleague, Lindsay Thornquist. Lindsay, my question to you is, as a BPS teacher, a dual language teacher in the district, can you share what have you seen that has positively impacted English learners and families in BPS, in particular, those students that you work with?
Hi, and thank you so much for that question, Dr. Sylvia Romero Johnson. I'm a sixth grade teacher at the Hurley School in the South End, and I have been working there for 9 years, and I must say that it has been such an honor being a dual language teacher. I think some of the positive things that have gone on is that students feel validated. You go into our monthly, when we, pre-COVID, we would have our rallies once a month, and just hearing kids, all different linguistic backgrounds, singing in unison to Mark Anthony, and then also knowing the lyrics to a Drake song, and just going between those languages, just that beauty and that affirmation of who these students are, what they bring to the table, is present at all times in these schools. Another positive thing is that our curriculum, we try to make it as culturally responsive as possible. And after talking to some high school students who were prior fifth graders of mine, they expressed how they love that they read books in Spanish. They love that they read books in English. They love that they learned about Trujillo. They love that they learned that they read Cuando era puertorriqueña. And when they went and they left to go to a different school, they didn't feel the same way. They didn't have those same experiences. And to find other students that were like them, looked like them, spoke like them, had experiences like them became increasingly more difficult. Whereas at the Hurley it wasn't. Also, parents have no issue finding somebody who understands them, that can speak to them in their language, and also understand them culturally, because it is one thing to speak the language, it's another thing to actually know the culture. So we have a very diverse staff, and that is also very helpful to engaging the parents. I feel like our students generally feel safe. We try to make sure that students understand that this is their right. It is their right to have access to this education, and that they should be proud to be the bilingual, biliterate, multicultural students that they are. Embrace everything that they bring to the table and not let anybody tell you different. So I see the amazing impact. I see the potential to do more, and it is wonderful to work in a dual language program.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimonial. So next, I would like to connect with Miss Bianca Pierre, who's an educator, paraprofessional in our district.
Yes.
What have you experienced that has positively impacted our students, as well as students from different heritages in their experience as bilingual students in BPS?
Yes, hi. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. My name is Bianca Pierre. I work as a paraprofessional at the Beethoven this year, but the past 2 years, I worked at the Matterhorn at the Haitian dual language program. So my experience, like pretty much similar to everything Lindsay just said, but as an early childhood educator, seeing, especially the new arrivals, seeing children that just came that cannot really express themselves in English, the comfortability they have in the classroom, they're not shy, they're able to, to communicate with everybody, just seeing the teacher can speak their language. It's like, that's the most positive thing that I feel like it's really great for them. Then before you know it, in less than a year, they come, and then before, not only they're speaking their language, and then they're speaking English in less than a year. So I think the dual language program, it's very, very good for especially the new arrival. But whoever wants to learn another language, they always feel comfortable, especially if we have sometimes we have some children that their parents, they were born in this country, but the parents speak Haitian Creole with them, but they don't really answer them in Creole, they answer them in English. But when they come to school, for them to learn it, trying to communicate with the one that just came, it's like, it's joyful. And most of my children that students that I serve, they usually feel so comfortable, feel so good to, to be able to interact with us as a teacher, to see that we can communicate just like their parents with them, to see that they have we're talking about the culture with them. They always feel so great. So the dual language program is doing, like a fantastic job for our children in the district. So, but thank you for having me, and thank you for supporting this program, because we really need it. And the parents, like Lindsay said, they always feel, comfortable talking to us. They don't have any problem, like where if it was a teacher or any other educator that doesn't speak their language, they usually feel a little bit shy to go communicate with them. But to us, they will just come and tell us, express themselves the way they feel. So that's the most important things I think the dual language bring, to the district and to our students' life. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pierre. And now turning to Dr. Borrero. It's been wonderful to meet you since I arrived in BPS. You work in special education. What supports have you experienced or witnessed that have positively impacted English learners, bilingual learners, and families, particularly those that are receiving the services of the special education program and staff?
First of all, thank you for having me back. It's like coming home. Half of my heart is always going to be in OELL because I am an English learner. I will always be an English learner. I fight better in Spanish. I am more emotional in Spanish, so I will always be Latina, and English is my language of education, right? I did most of my academic life in English, but my heart is Latino. So yes, special education, at least in Boston public schools, tends to be the place to go when children are having difficulties because we don't have a lot of interventions or ways to support our multilingual learners. And that has been for many, many years. I'm currently working as program director for behavioral health. So I work with the psychologists and the social workers. And when teachers are desperate in the classroom where they don't have supports for children, they tend to go to the special education route. And it's funny that you have this picture here. In 2017, we did a lot of supports for the COAST and the LATFs on how to support children in the classroom without having to go to special education, trying to support them with interventions and classroom interventions of different means. I'm sorry about that. My office is also my bedroom. So, so just looking for ways on how to support children without having to go in that manner. So think about the United States is one of the most powerful countries in the world, but it's still monolingual, right? When you look outside of the United States, Europe, most of the kids are trilingual in many cases, and it comes naturally, right? It takes, for those children outside of the United States, it's very easy to pick up a third language because it's common, right? Outside in the neighborhood, you learn different languages. Here in the United States, unless you live in a neighborhood that is multilingual or bilingual, you don't really hear it because we are told don't speak your language, right? Because it's not accepted. And you hear that this is America, speak English, right? So it is, for me, really powerful that BPS is growing in the dual language programs. It's really pushing for us to be a dual language district. And you can see it, when you walk into the Hurley, when you walk into Mattapan, when you walk into the Hernandez, the Muñiz, it is so powerful to walk in and they greet you with, hola, buenos días, ¿qué tal, right? I can't say it in Haitian Creole, I don't speak that, but it is so powerful when the children greet you in that manner. So that multilingual piece, even in Chinatown, when we go into the Quincy, even though that's not a dual language school yet, it is so powerful to see the children greet you in their language, right? So we're empowering children to embrace their culture and their different languages. So that's critical. Now, when we add the special education piece to this, it is challenging to learn another language. I've been speaking English since I was 6 years old. So, you know, that's a long, long time, right? So when you add to that, you're coming to a new nation, a nation where I have to acculturate and learn not just the language, but the culture and the climate and so many other things. This takes time, right? So I might look like I'm struggling. I might look like I can't read. I might look like so many things that look like a disability. And then if my teacher doesn't have interventions to help me and she can't communicate with me, special education seems like a good way to go, right? So a lot of our students, unfortunately, more than 20% of our students end up in special education because that's what we have, right? But in spite of that, we do have a lot of supports in special education that do help our multilingual students. As we move forward, we are working, and hopefully with Dr. Romero's help, we will develop multilingual special education programs. I see that coming down the pipe. I see that coming, where we will have multilingual native language supports, where the child who does have a valid language specific learning disability or any other type of disability will get their supports in their native language. That would be a dream of mine come true, right? Where they can get their supports in Spanish or Vietnamese or whatever language they speak, because their brain will absorb the instruction much better, right? For example, in reading, and I'm sure those of you who teach reading will understand, if I can read in my own language, especially in Spanish, I can transfer that into English, right? And it is so much easier to read, right? English is such a complicated language to learn, to teach how to read and to learn for reading. So these are just things that we have to be considerate. So when we look at special education services, I have seen when teachers use their language to explain things to kids, the kids absorb it better. They feel more comfortable. So special education with native language supports, it's a win-win for our kids. The other piece I really wanted to focus on is that our children, our multilingual students, deserve cognitively demanding tasks, just like anyone else. And just because they might be a little bit slower in picking up the language does not mean they can't do the work. And Claudia presented it in one of her slides at the beginning. It takes us 5 to 7 years to really be dominant in the language, but boy, when they hit that mark, they take off and they surpass their monolingual counterparts, right? So just because our students might be a little bit slower taking off, we cannot shortchange them. We've got to push them to be as demanding with our academics as possible. So yes, I have seen some great material done with our special education students and some great supports. I still think that the best is yet to come as we move towards more native language supports. So I'll stop there. I'm sure you'll have more questions for me.
Thank you so much. So if we go to the next slide. So this is a follow-up question for the panelists, as well as anyone who is here in attendance with us. What priorities do you want to see in the roadmap that would build confidence that this shift, meaning the quality services for multilingual learners, is a reality?
This is open. I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Cool. All right. So, and Dr. Yvonne Borrero, thank you for saying that. I think that's one of the things that has been frustrating for me as being a dual language teacher, is just feeling like these resources have to be out there. Spanish is a very popular language. There are countries where students are struggling with literacy in Spanish. And I'm just like, the resources are there. And I feel frustrated that we don't have access to them. And I'm glad that that is something that's on the radar, because sometimes I just feel like lost or I'm talking to the wall. I think another priority that we need to do that ties into that is just authentic materials and resources in general, especially in the language other than English. All too often, we're just reading translated versions of the English text. When there's so many authors out there, if we go to Latin America, we got to go find these texts. Maybe they're not readily available here in this country, or that's what we think, but they are out there. And we do need to get our hands on them because our students deserve them. And what ends up happening is that the teachers of the language other than English get burnt out. It is so hard to be the teacher of the language other than English in a dual language program. It is so hard being in this society where English is a language of power, and our students, as they get older, it is so sad to see them change. And I know that we started with positive, and that's why I know we're doing the right work, but I also just want to recognize that as students get older, you see it change. You see the shift, you see them preferring, and I struggle to keep them to loving their language and their linguistic identity. And as a teacher, and it sucks because as a human being, as a Latina, as you know, my mom raised me speaking and being so proud, and I want them so badly to feel that. But if society is telling them something different, then there's only so much we can do, but we need to unite, which leads to my next thing. And I have to give Paul some credit here. I gotta give the Teacher Leadership Fund some credit where credit is due, because due to that fund, teachers have been able to rally. We had 2 years where we provided professional development by our own teachers who have been busting their butts in these classrooms and trying to give back to their community so that we can do better by our students and our families. And we do need to unite more because everybody is in their silo. Everybody is recreating materials that already exist, and we need support. And I'm glad that the paradigm shift, and you know, it's never mejor tarde que nunca, but I cannot help but feel some type of resentment toward the fact that it took this long. I mean, I remember 2001. I remember when my mom's friends lost their jobs because there was no more bilingual education. I remember them crying. I remember throwing out books. And, you know, I'm glad that some programs were able to exist, but we really need to keep that at the forefront, is that our students, this is a right. This is a right that has been taken away from them. And now we need to embrace the change and embrace the fact that it is politically recognized. Because again, as Carmen said, this is politics. And we need to make sure that this cycle doesn't continue. We need to end it. And it needs to continue, and we need to keep on getting stronger. And that is my fear. And what are we gonna do so that that doesn't happen? I also want to acknowledge that we have a very different population. Our students are changing. We're getting more and more heritage speakers. And it is so important for these students to hold on to their identity the same way I am a heritage speaker. And if it wasn't for my mom doing the work and pushing me, and then myself to find that, I wouldn't be here in front of you, and I wouldn't be doing the work with my students. Eleni came into my classroom one day and we immediately clicked because she looked at my YouTube page and she was like, girl, you got J Bobby. She's like, hold up, is this my YouTube page? And I was like, girl. And we immediately connected. And that is what our students deserve. They should not be reaching, looking, searching for somebody that understands them. And I know I'm going beyond the dual language because this should be happening in all BPS, regardless of the program that these students are in. They should all have access to these people that understand them, to other peers that understand them. I think we need to educate families. We need to do better to let them understand what their rights are. We need to do better to let them understand what dual language means. We have too many students who start in dual language and then leave to go to charter schools because, oh, my kid learned English. My kid learned English, so now they can go to a mainstream monolingual school. I'm like, we need to do better. We need to help them understand. We need to do more. At the end of the day, it's their decision. I can't tell a parent how to parent, but I think that we are not doing enough. We are not doing enough as it is. And I got my notes, so I'm sorry I keep on looking down because y'all know that this gets me heated, okay? I think we need to look for more native speakers to be teachers. I said it earlier and I'm gonna say it again. Just because you went to Peru and you learned Spanish, you know, for a couple months, or you were there, or you learned it in college and high school, that's cute, good for you. But should you really be the one in front of those students? Do you really understand who they are? And we have too many barriers set up for native speakers who are themselves, quote unquote, English learners. And I'm saying it in quotes because they are multilingual learners. They're bilingual learners. And I think we need to do more so that we get more Biancas who are paraprofessionals. They should be in front of the classroom. And I have so much more to say, but I'm gonna get off my pedestal real quick. And I appreciate everybody for taking the time to listen. And I'm just grateful that we're having this conversation. So thank you for this space.
Thank you so much. I love that. Love it. Who wants to go next? What do you want to see in the roadmap that would build your confidence that this shift is a reality?
Well, for me, I really want to push back on special education process and say, wait until my kids really pick up the language, wait until they have interventions, wait until they have more exposure to the language before we jump into disability categories. Wait. And that, of course, that's a big ask, and that's a big fight that we'll have to do against the special education department and their procedures and protocols. I'm willing to fight that, or I have been fighting that in my professional career for many, many years, but I can't do it alone. So if anybody wants to join me in that fight, you know, I'm constantly pushing back. Maybe that's a better term to use, pushing back and saying, nope, this kid cannot, nope, this, we cannot be testing this child. They just came. They, you know, they just arrived in this country, right? No, this kid just, no. Well, he doesn't speak English, so too bad. Nope, he needs 3 years of exposure to English before we could even think about that. Well, he's not reading, too bad. He needs more intervention, right? So we really, you know, for me, it's more time for the students to really settle in, to really be exposed, to really get quality education before we move into the special education world. And yes, so thank you, Lindsay. Your passion is like, yes, yes, yay. I think everybody should be reading Calderón de la Barca. I mean, that's my favorite. It's like, what? Before Shakespeare, but that's just me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Reisner. I'm a second grade teacher at the Elliott, and I'm currently in the Pathways program, the ESL Pathways program with BPS. So I'm here not only as a BTU member, but also as a learner to learn as much as I can about the department and our ELL learners. And I just want to say, in my studies through the Pathways, I've learned just the importance of assessments, both the local school-wide assessments, the grade levels, and also the district-wide assessments, and how important it is to make sure that the language is not only comprehensible, but it's also attainable and culturally relevant. And for me, that's just been a lens that I've been looking at through my studies at Pathways of how important that is, to look at assessments across the grades.
Thank you so much, Jason, for joining us and for participating and providing your input.
Yeah, I'll go. Like, for example, like for the Haitian dual language program, the priority, I think it's resources. We need resources. I know I'm not there anymore, but I'm still passionate about this program. And we need to really prioritize resources for the educators, because they are, if the Spanish people are complaining the way they are complaining, imagine us. Spanish dual language been there for the longest time. They're still having difficulties. They're still having challenges. And we just started. We don't have the resources that we need for the program to continue, especially we're going grade by grade every year, we're adding another grade. We're gonna need a lot of resources, and the teacher, like Lindsay said, not because this person can get a license doesn't mean they qualify to teach that class. So there are so many qualified educators out there that because they're unable or they're having challenges to get the license, they cannot be in front of that classroom when they are so qualified and so capable of, doing the class. So I think it's cultural. We need the educators that can really teach the classroom, that can identify with the students, and resources, because we don't have much for the program to survive.
Duly noted. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any
No,
other?
I'll add to Bianca's point about paraprofessionals. I think one key thing to know is that the paraprofessionals are often the native speaker adult in the classroom. And they're not getting credit for that. So we have a lot of paraprofessionals that are amazing and are, doing all this work, and we've mentioned it earlier, but they're getting paid the same. And I think that that's not fair, because they take on a huge role culturally, linguistically, yes, pedagogically, so many things.
Translators, we are all in there. Mm-hmm. And they have so many other, titles, like they have the sun care, they have the library powers, all these categories, they get paid a bit more. So why not the dual language powers? Because they are working. I'm not saying the other part's not working hard, but we're doing double work, because we have to translate whatever is in English. We have to help the teachers translate, for us to teach the children. So I think it will just be fair for them to get a little bit more than what they're getting right now.
That's a great point, Bianca. I know that when I was in OELL, we started to work on how could we use the paras that we have that are multilingual, and how could we create a program where we could use their skills, right? And we started to train some of the paras to help with assessments and help the SLPs and the psychologists during assessment period. And I know Alan Downley, I don't know if he's on our call today, to do that, because yes, number one, you know the kids better, and you know the culture, and you can really work with the families as well. The families tend to trust the para because you have that connection. Yes. So that would be an awesome system to put together. We did train some Spanish speakers, because that was the bigger need to help us with some of that. We did that, but that would be something we could go back to do.
Am I right that we're into sort of a more open discussion here for other folks to share? Great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I do love everything that the panelists shared too, but and thanks Jason for sharing. But good to hear from some of the other educators who've joined as well about your experiences. What would you like to see?
Is it okay to go ahead? Hi. I'm currently an ESL teacher at the Winship School. I've been doing this for 4 years, and prior to that worked in early childhood special ed, SEI, inclusion classes. So I've taught in the system long enough to remember bilingual education. And my second job was at a bilingual school. But in answering this question about building confidence, I'd really like to go back to Jason's point about assessment. I think that one of the challenges for me as an ESL teacher is when the children come in at a certain level, but as the classroom teacher, after they've had a little chance to settle in, you kind of don't really agree with the level that was given to them, the ELD level, and there's a huge process to ask for reconsideration of it. More often than not, it's been that the child's WIDA assessment placement score is elevated, so that you have several times you have children who are they're given a level 4 or 3, and at the end of the year when they take the WIDA test, the access test, they are often 1 or 2 levels below. And I think also sort of having more dynamic interaction between the teachers and the system's sort of identification of what level they are, that there could possibly be some sort of progress monitoring over the year so that you can really have a way of measuring a child's growth other than on the WIDA, based on other than the WIDA score. I'd also like to see some really raucous discussion about the curriculum. I mean, I think you were saying how it's so critical that we make connections for the children to the curriculum that's being used. And too often you still see a discrepancy in programs. Some people are using a curriculum from many years ago. Others are lost because of, or not lost, but they're struggling with a lack of resources, as everyone's been saying, in the native language. Or, you are trying to work with the classroom teachers and making the curriculum accessible to the English language learners, which is my focus. And my other suggestion would be to really look at the long-term follow-up of students, because what's happening from what I see, it is not unusual for our children to be given an ELD level of 4 at the end of 3rd or 4th grade, but that's really before academic language has been challenged consistently with the curriculum. I'm proud of the children who at our school and the progress they make in English, but I know that there's been some, comments from the teachers who are working with the upper grade students, well, this child really hasn't developed their academic language, their vocabulary, the things that we are working on. And so I'm sort of thinking about the long term, that maybe children do get a lot of support in the elementary years, but as the academic talk becomes more challenging, they really, we need to follow them. And I think that's what part of the Look Act is designed for, is to really follow these students and make sure that they have a good start, but we want to make sure that throughout their career, we're helping to support them. It might not be formal, structured ESL time or whatever. It might be check-ins or mixed groups with, not English language learners as models, English speakers as models, looking at dynamic models of reaching those children and making sure that they're able to continue to perform as well as they had when they were in elementary school.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Anyone else?
Hello.
Yes.
My name is Yvonne Bodo. I don't know. The priority that I would like to see that happen with the multi-language that I'm gonna start at BPS is to have in every class, I think the language should be represented. If somebody is teaching Haitian Creole and where the majority are Haitian Creole speakers, they should have somebody who speak Creole in that classroom. And I think we have a lot of Haitian that speak Creole that can be in the classroom. That way that kids can be fully assisted. I think that's one of the concerns that we should be paying attention to. If they are from Korea, they have Korean speakers that is in the classroom of the kid. That's something that we cannot not have. Not have somebody who present that kid's language. I don't know if they said that before, but I came a little late, but that's one thing that I would love to say, that we don't miss that. They must have somebody who speak that child language in the process, not somebody who said they can say few words in that language, but that's somebody who fully can speak that language, where the kid, that kid's language can be represented.
Thank you so much for that feedback. I will just comment briefly that that has come up repeatedly, that increasing the capacity, the linguistic capacity across schools, across programs, continues to come as a high request and as a desired, state, future desired state, but and present, right? And so working with our colleagues in different departments will be critical for the roadmap to be effective. Thank you. Any other comments?
I was curious, Bianca, when you were talking about resources, do you have, I think tends to be like kind of a catch-all term when we say we need resources. When you were thinking of resources, what kinds of things did you have in mind? And that could go for panelists and other educators present as well. When we always say we want resources, what are those?
Like books that are in Haitian Creole, videos, and we need educators to create more. Like we in English we have so many videos that are educative, that there for us to just go in the ABC, they can learn the diagraphs, they have all that in, and the teacher can find that. But if you're in a dual language, you cannot find these things. You have to try to make your head work to like, oh, well, how can I teach the diagraph to this kid? How can I teach, like alphabet? How can I teach phonemic awareness to this kid? Not only in Creole, in English. It's easy to find the English resources, but you cannot find it in the other language. That's the problem. So I don't know if we should just create, or we create whatever is already exist in English, but we need to find this.
And to piggyback Bianca, in the Haitian dual language, we have teachers that are spending a number of hours creating those materials. And besides teaching, they're spending hours and hours creating those materials. And it's great because they want it to happen. They see what's happening when you use the kids' language to educate them. We see miracles. You can come in those K1 and K2 class and see what the kids are doing. It's great when you use the kids' language to inform instruction. It's good. It's awesome. But we need those resources, and the teachers are creating them. They're spending hours, even double the time that they're teaching to create those materials. So I think that they should think of the teachers that have the skills already to make them, that's their job, to create those materials, and then hire another teacher to do the class, because the teachers are putting extreme amount of time to create those materials.
Well, do you use Nearpod in your school? Nearpod has a whole set of materials in Haitian Creole, created in Miami, Florida. So you should look into that.
Okay, so I think we just purchased Dingo, Lingo. So this is something new that's coming to us. So we're gonna start using it. We actually, Genevieve just purchased it for us. We're gonna use it. And then we have other things that I mean, they're there, but we are exploring that. This is new for us, and Genevieve just purchased it. We're gonna use it. So
It's in your self-serve in the apps.
okay. So we haven't used that. We haven't used Nearpod. I don't know if other teachers use it, but in K1, I haven't used it.
So it's in the waffle in your Gmail.
Okay, so that's a note. I'm taking that note, so I will go and explore it this evening to see what's available for the K1 students.
Mhm.
And all the books, Mrs. Bodo, the books, well-written books, not, don't just get books anywhere. We need to be able to get these well-written books where you don't have to keep correcting every time. So
because sometimes we find mistakes in the books. We have to correct them ourselves, and we don't have way to get back to the company where they buy them, where the mistake can be corrected.
Yeah,
I could just piggyback on that. I want to also acknowledge that we don't want a curita, a band-aid, just something that okay, it's gonna te tapa la herida un momentito and it'll be good, right? I'll just cover the hurt, the whatever it is the word that I'm looking for.
The wound,
that's the word. Okay. So I just in addition to the books, teachers do need time to plan, because I've gotten to that point where I was oh, okay, I need books. Okay. You see me on donors choose. You see me anytime that the principal gives me oh, I go on Lectorum, and I'm word, I got all these books. Yes. But then I need time to read the books. I need time to plan for the books. And I also need more help. And I've had to find that help on my own by attending professional development, looking for these resources myself, reading through the materials myself in terms of ways to make the instruction more engaging and purposeful and authentic for my students. So I think that's something that the dual language programs need. Well, any program, I guess, would need this, but especially in language other than English, we have the materials. If the materials are there, we also need the time to plan, the supports to plan, the time to link up, and also making sure that it's well balanced and equitable when you're looking at it as compared to the English resources. And there should be communication. In the past, I remember when I started teaching, I was like the Spanish police. No hables inglés. Escucho demasiado inglés. Hablen en español. Es la hora de español. And so my students will be oh my God, Miss T is always Spanish time. And then I started okay, it's okay to use English. And all of a sudden somebody's getting paid the big bucks for talking about translanguaging. And I was oh, word? Okay. Yeah. I wish that somebody would have taught more about it. And I still don't fully understand how to use those opportunities. And that's something that needs to be happen in the Haitian Creole program, in the Spanish programs, in the Vietnamese programs. Those strategies are out there, but we need time to understand them, go deeper into them, and put them into practicing. Reading it out of a book and I interpret it one way, then I see, like you said, a video, and I'm oh, that's what it looks like. I had a whole other thing going through my head, but it's because I didn't have that support, right? So I, to your answer, Paul, it's just, the physical materials, yeah, but there's so much more. I remember I got handed something from American Reading Company, and it was this thick instructional whatever, and they're here, happy? I was actually no, I'm not, because I don't know what this is I don't know what to do with this. And it was just too much thrown at me. If I'm not trained on how to use the curriculum, if we don't have that, then the material is only so good. So, just thinking about, we do need to train teachers.
Yes. And I remember when we just started the dual language program, and we bought a bunch of books, so many books in Creole. And then when we start reading these books, we become a police. Most of the books, the stories did not add up. And then the writing, it was just, a lot of it was just terrible. We have to, every time we're reading, we have to correct, every line. It was just terrible. But anyway, I hope it's, we're getting further down the line. I hope things changing and we're getting better publishers to get our books from, because the beginning it was rough.
Lucky
Yes,
now,
thank you.
lucky now we have Lunin and her staff
Yes.
doing a lot of translation for us, and they've been doing a great job getting ready all the class that we keep on adding. So we're making great progress.
Yeah.
But we want to see we eval again. So we have support from Daphne, from ELL, and the principals at her school. They're very active to make it work. So that's the good point. But we need, and they have to have the funding and things that are available, that to know that is a big deal. And the kid, we can see the kids are making progress, so we have to put the money where the progress is happening. So that's what we would like to see, that the teachers can be identified teachers that can create materials and that can go over those materials. That way, when we send those books home for the kids, because we have non-speakers, we have kids that in our classroom, they do not speak Creole, their parents do not speak Creole too. We want, when we send those materials home, we want them to be as accurate as it can be. So we have those people that can do the work, and they are doing the work at the Manor House also. We're lucky. The last 2 years they've been working, preparing the next class that we are adding. But we need more. We need more.
Thank you so much. Your comments, provide a lot of the evidence that we need to make a case for why this shift from a monolingual perspective to a multilingual perspective is essential. Yes. So thank you for some of those examples. Are there others that you identify as well, that you want us to, include in this roadmap? What do you as educators and your colleagues, you've seen, your colleagues in action, what do you need to make sure that we include in the roadmap?
I think we need leadership too. We need leaders that believe in us, that, that really want the program to succeed. It doesn't matter if it's Spanish, Haitian Creole, or Vietnamese, whatever other dual language to come. So we, as educators, we're gonna need leaders that believe in us, that want us to succeed.
In addition, teachers, teachers who believe that using the kids' language or whatever that we're gonna teach them is okay. It's okay for a kid to use another language or speak another language. It doesn't have to be the predominant English. We understand they are here, they will get the English. Believe me, we have kids that have been in the program for only 2 years. You will not be surprised that they speak correct English.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, the English get better than the Creole that they come with. It's just amazing, yeah. So it will happen, but let's use what they know and where they are and educate them, and we see great result. If you come in the group of the kids that we have now, I don't see they are left behind. Actually, the gap is quite filled, so it's great. So we have to make the teachers, it's not really a job problem that they're gonna have. That's the way to go, to prepare the kids for the next time that is coming. And they're bright. And you come in a first grade class, the kids are reading both languages. You go to the second grade, they're writing in both languages. It can be proved, it's working. So now we have to go and support it and make it more successful.
I think we also need to have community partners, making sure that the different areas of the city really support our students. I know my son was at the Elliott School, and they would have an Italian day once a week, and they would walk the neighborhood, and they would have to speak in Italian in the businesses.
That's awesome.
Of course, they went to Mike's Pastries, and they had to order. And if they ordered correctly, they would get free cannolis, which was a good deal, right? So I think I know that we do have lots of partnerships with many of our communities, but I think that we need to do that more. You know, like Chinatown would be a great place, right, for our kids to go out and practice their skills. So doing that would be a great relationship with our community to bring our kids out of our buildings and really have them engage with our community partners and our businesses, and you know, do that kind of stuff. That would be fun.
Yes.
So that's required great outreach coordinators. So that's another thing to add for the programs, which they don't have.
And I see a lot of our family engagement people here and on my screen. So that would be, you know, a project for them to do.
In thinking about our area of, so we think about areas of concern, area of influence. As BTU members, what do you consider is your area of to be able to influence and to be able to, you know, like, how do we reach more of your colleagues? How do we make this dialogue ongoing? You know, just some ideas and, you know, prompts to get us talking before I talk about next steps and how we continue this conversation.
So I hold a multilingual committee with the psychologists and social workers. We have over 29 bilingual psychologists and social workers in 13 different languages. So we meet once a month and we talk about different activities that we do, materials that we put out, and you know, professional development that we hold for these particular people. So we've put out guidance, we've presented to the coast, and we would like to present to the LATFs. That's our next on our agenda. We just have to coordinate it with Chi. So that's one way that I contribute to keeping us and keeping this dialogue going. So I'm more than happy to continue to do that work.
Excellent, thank you. Okay. As was mentioned before, this is sort of phase one in this process. I think it's crucial that as such an important stakeholder group, we come together under, you know, the understanding the why. Once we understand the why for the shift that, you know, will be contained in the roadmap, possible solutions are viable, right? We can think about what the plan should contain. You know, there are certain pieces that are crucial, like you've mentioned, professional development, support for curriculum development. You know, those are things that for sure need to be part of a plan. But I think sharing a common understanding about why we're proposing this shift needs to be sort of and everybody needs to be shared by everybody in BPS in general, but certainly within the major stakeholders. So my hope is that you will continue, right, these conversations with your colleagues, that maybe we can connect again around what we have talked about today. Because then we were going to continue with phase two. And in phase two, we will start looking at the components of a plan. But if we haven't come to the conclusion that the overall direction is a good idea, that we're in support, then the particular strategies that we're using may seem out of out of sync or not in agreement. So this is why we wanted to start here with you around building a rationale for why this change is necessary, it's essential, and there's no other time but now. Our students only get one chance to be right in kindergarten or in first grade or in second grade. And what we cannot continue to have is students who are multilingual enrolling in BPS, and if they graduate monolingual, right? We cannot have that. That's sort of intolerable at this point. So then, as interested stakeholders, how do we come together to say we will not accept that as a state of things, and we will collaborate with all other stakeholders to build that different trajectory for our students? So if there are there any other questions? We said that we could stay until 6, and I'm very, very happy to do that. Are there any other comments or that you would like to make, you know, for the good of the cause, for, you know, building, you know, understanding and a shared understanding? Lindsay, do you want to expand on your comment in the chat?
I mean, Dr. Romero Johnson, I could go on for days about this topic. So that's why I'm trying to write it in the chat. I don't want to be the only voice. But I do think that oftentimes we're trying to do these things and people might get annoyed with all my emails and trying to push this work. And people like to complain. But then when it's time for them to show up and do something, they're nowhere to be seen.
Yes.
And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that as teachers, as educators, we're just tired. Like it's hard to do anything additional. And I don't blame them because, you know, I don't have kids. I have the time and I have the passion to dedicate to my time to this. However, I do think that it needs to be built in. I mean, Bianca already knows because Bianca and I be up like at 8 o'clock talking about this and going on forever. And Eve Rose too. So I do think that this needs to not be optional. I think this should just be built into the day so that teachers don't keep on getting burnt out. Like, oh, ILT. Oh, Lindsay, you're gonna do ILT? I'm like, yeah, you already know I'm gonna be there, but like, you already got me. You don't need me on your, I've been on your bus. Like, we need to get other people on here. I'm already a believer. So I think that allowing teachers the time to do this work in the day with the PD. I also think we need to be conscious of the fact that we do have monolingual teachers, and I used to feel a certain type of way. And then Dr. Medina came to our school, and I was like, no, you know what? There are some amazing monolingual teachers, but they don't have the right tools to be an amazing dual language teacher. And I think that even though they only speak English, they are still a dual language teacher, and they still need to do the hard work. And you know, it's hard because we're very tied to our jobs as teachers, and you know, we need to help one another and build one another. But again, me voy a poner en mute y lo paso el micrófono.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree too. And I believe that they have to believe in it. And I mean it when I said believe in it.
And then I remember last year, actually, no, 2 years ago, when some monolingual teacher, I think we were failing our kids because we're speaking Creole to them. They say we're failing the kids. When our kids were, I'm sorry, they were more advanced than some of the other classrooms.
You know?
And they just came. So,
yeah. They just don't believe in it. There are some people who don't believe in it. They think that it should be just English in America. And that's what we are failing a lot of kids. And we have kids that just come in this country. They're doing very well.
Very well.
In 2 languages. So we are failing them by not giving it to them. If we really want to fill the gap, all the achievement gap, that's the way to go.
That's the way to go.
That's the way to
Especially
go.
the new arrival, especially the new arrivals.
That's the way to go. We don't have any other choice. And today I was doing an art class with some kids. I have a Cape Verdean speaker speaking Creole with me. I have my hair like going up because I said, what? When did you know all that Creole? It can't happen. But we have to believe in, and we have to make, they have to do it. If it's the way we're going, everybody has to be on board. That's the way to go. We cannot keep on saying that's the way we're gonna do. That's the way it's gonna be. If we said that's the way it's go, it has to go like that. And then because who's gonna benefit? The kids. We see results. Parents are involved. They're not afraid to come and ask questions because they know that we can understand them. They participate, even in Zoom. They come, they ask questions. They come with the full Creole, and they go and able to help their kids in Creole learning the materials. It's just amazing. Mind not doing it, we're gonna fail a lot of our students.
Thank you. Lisa?
Yes, I was just going to say that I think it's very exciting. I think it would be helpful if you could sort of define what your vision is so far. I mean, a lot of you have had conversations about this vision of the multilingual classroom. And also it sounds like there are some models that are working very well. So I think one thing is to really document those models really well. And this is just thinking back over the years that what happens is there will be a few really strong, highly successful models, and then the system does not want to replicate them. So I think that sets up an issue where, oh, you're at a program that's already established and working really well. We want that program, but then they'll say, oh, we're not going to fund it because it's too expensive. We have a model program. This happened with inclusion. You know, we had an inclusion model years ago at the school where I teach, and it was, we showed it was successful, but you know, it was, you know, they didn't want to replicate it. So I think that's one of the things that one of the challenges is that you know, you say, oh, we have a program here, it's really successful, and then trying to get some commitment to replicating it, or to having that be the foundation for the program and then moving on from there. But I think I am constantly going to the Office of English Language Learner page for information. And I think the time to sort of start talking about this is now and really defining what it means. And also to show that maybe we learned from what succeeded and what didn't succeed under bilingual education. So this is going to be dynamic, something, you know, that people have really been thinking about, and you have some sort of model for people to see, rather than saying, oh, you're not going to have the kids learn English, or, you know, like when you say multilingual at graduation, are you meaning academic proficiency in both languages? You know, what is it that
right.
what is it that you envision, so that people can understand it before the misperceptions start? Because I've heard a little bit about multilingual, the vision, but I really haven't. This is my first day of really hearing what sort of people have been talking about a lot. So I think sometimes when I like the way you're asking for feedback now, rather than going to the school committee and presenting some plan and then everyone's saying, what's going on? There goes the job, you know? So, and I think if you do see the role of ESL teachers in this multilingual program, to sort of have an idea of that. If you don't, to let people know. And I think it's wonderful to think that you're going to have multilingual programs for every language in the city, but you know, if you aren't, what are you going to offer that's as high high standards or whatever? So.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, so much for being here. Romero Johnson, sorry. I want to make sure that we have the opportunity for all voices to be heard. There's nobody else that wants to share, as we're having this really great dynamic discussion for this critical work.
I would like to share, Ms. Willis.
Yes.
Really quickly, I just want to give a shout out to everyone in the room, because our passion ignites our momentum to advocate and just to keep biliteracy, linguistic, love, passion, fuel, light shining. It's so good to see so many familiar faces. Shout out to everyone. Ms. Bordeaux, I miss you. It's been too long. I miss you, Sherry Bale. I remember our good times together with Miss Bianca. But I just want to say, as a graduate of Madahunt, as a graduate up until 4th grade, I was flipped from TBE. You know, it's just exciting to have this energy and to be involved in the work, to continue as a BPS alum from K to 12 to be here, because we're all in it to win it. Yes. And that's all I'm gonna say, because I'm gonna keep going and going. But belle chérie, Miss Biardou, it was so good to see you. Yes. So good to hear you.
Me too, thank you. I'm in it, we have to do it. And the kids make me laugh. I have an accident, I'm home, I'm not working because I've been home since November from a car accident. But I see them every day. I mean, that's what makes me going every day.
I was gonna say, don't say you're not working, because you are working, even though you're not supposed to.
Because it's just amazing, like how the kids are going to have a product. I'm telling you, she's doing an amazing job. And when I see the kids come and say, Miss Shirley, can I read for you? And when actually the kids are taking book and read in Saturday, I mean, pandemic time, it's just like amazing. So it can happen, even though they're on Zoom. And then look at how she's happy. The kids are coming in person. She's ready for them. I said, Miss Shirley, I miss them so much. Can I come with my broken leg? I mean, it's just like the kids are doing well. They're happy. They speak in Creole and they're reading in English. It's happening. So it's amazing. So I cannot wait to go back maybe in June to see them. Hopefully I get to see them really in person before the school is over. I really miss them dearly, but
I'll come to visit you and your students.
That's why, yeah, it's amazing. You have to come and see. You have to come and visit. We're gonna have a summer camp, so you should come and see our summer camp.
And this is K1 Ms. Wood was talking about, and they're already reading.
This is K1. So we are very dedicated, and I cannot wait for that teacher herself, that Para, to become a teacher. She's waiting. We are pushing her. She's passing the test to come. She's a very young person, but let me tell you, she reminded me when I was her age, starting teaching in Randolph, and I was doing the 20th century bilingual education. It's just the passion that she has is on fire. So I cannot wait to see her sharing that passion with her students. The students wants to come to school every day. They don't miss school. We have full class, maybe 2, 3 don't come, but we call them, they show up later. So it's just good to have the kids there and be able to understand. They just come arrive here, they hear their language, they see their culture. We eating the food that they're eating, we showing them their breakfast. We said, oh, that's what I'm eating too, and I'm showing them their food. There's nothing better than that. I think for me, that should be the next thing that's happening in BPS, and you're gonna see the change. And I guarantee you're gonna see a lot of gap happening. We're not gonna stop talking. We're gonna stop talking about achievement gap. If we go that way, I think so. I firmly believe that.
Well, with that exchange, I was gonna close this out, but it seems as if, you know, there's no need for a close, because we are among friends, we're among colleagues, and it really seems like we're really among family with a shared vision and passion. So thank you all for participating in this conversation. It has been wonderful to facilitate, and thank you all for the opportunity. So just that is our close, and thank you so much. Feel free to leave anything in the chat if you would like us to add it into consideration or our notes. And you guys have a wonderful night, and happy Eid for those celebrating.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.